You sleep on the floor and nobody questioned it, the judge asked, staring at me like he'd just seen a ghost. Then his eyes dropped to the birthmark near my collarbone, and the entire courtroom went silent. I was standing beside my foster mother during my foster brother Grant's wedding hearing after a drunken fight shut the reception down. My dress still smelled like bleach from cleaning the kitchen floors an hour earlier. Grant had grown up with an entire private wing in their mansion. I grew up beside the washing machine on a mattress they folded away every morning before guests came over. Diane always said I should be grateful they rescued me, so I stayed quiet, even when they made me serve dinner at the wedding instead of sitting with the family. But the judge wouldn't stop looking at me. Then he suddenly stepped away from the bench, pulled out his phone, and said one sentence that made Diane's face lose all color. "Get me the sealed records from 2004 now. Before we continue, please hit the like button, subscribe to the channel and turn on the notification bell for updates." The courtroom buzzed instantly. Grant stopped leaning against the wall and frowned. "What records?" Diane grabbed my wrist so tightly her nails dug into my skin. "Don't say another word," she whispered without looking at me. That scared me more than the judge did. Because Diane never panicked. Not when social workers came by the house. Not when neighbors asked why I wasn't in family photos. Not even when Grant got arrested 2 years earlier for smashing someone's windshield outside a bar. But now her face looked pale and tight, like she was trying not to fall apart in front of everyone. Judge Bennett walked back slowly, still staring at me. He looked older up close, grey hair, sharp eyes, the kind of man who noticed details nobody else did. "How long have you lived with the Whitmores?" he asked. "Since I was 8, I answered quietly. "And you never had your own room?" I shook my head. A few people in the courtroom exchanged uncomfortable looks. One of the wedding guests muttered, "Jesus Christ." Grant rolled his eyes immediately. "She's exaggerating, she had space downstairs." "Next to the laundry machines," I said before I could stop myself. Grant's jaw tightened. Diane finally let go of my wrist. Celine has always been dramatic. But the judge wasn't listening to her anymore. His eyes moved back to the small crescent-shaped birthmark near my collarbone. I suddenly wished I'd worn a different dress. Diane usually made me cover it around guests, but tonight she had been too busy controlling the disaster after the reception fight. Judge Bennett slowly sat down again. Then he asked something nobody had ever asked me before. "Do you remember your real parents?" The room felt smaller all at once. I opened my mouth, but before I could answer, Diane slammed her hand against the table. "That's enough," she snapped. "This has nothing to do with her." The judge didn't even look at her. Instead, he opened the folder the bailiff had just handed him, scanned one page, and his expression changed completely. Then he looked directly at me and said, "Miss Whitmore, I don't think that's your real last name." Diane stood up so fast her chair slammed backward onto the courtroom floor. "That's absurd," she said sharply. "You're crossing a line, Your Honor." But nobody was looking at her anymore. Every person in that courtroom was staring at me. I could actually hear my heartbeat in my ears as Judge Bennett closed the folder in front of him. He didn't look angry. That was the unsettling part. He looked careful, like he was trying not to say too much too soon. "Miss Celine," he said slowly, "I need to ask you a few questions." Grant let out an irritated laugh. "Can we stop pretending she's important? This hearing is about what happened at my wedding." The judge turned toward him calmly. "And yet somehow your family's treatment of her appears far more concerning." Grant's face hardened instantly. I stayed frozen beside the table, unsure if I was even allowed to sit down. Nobody had ever defended me in that family before, not publicly, not once. Judge Bennett folded his hands together. "Do you have any documents from before you entered foster care?" I shook my head. "No," Diane said, "everything was lost." "That's because it was," Diane cut in quickly. The judge ignored her again. "No photographs, hospital records, birth certificate." "Nothing," I said, I hesitated. Diane's eyes snapped toward me. The look she gave me made my stomach tighten immediately. "Just what?" the judge asked. Slowly, I reached into the small purse I carried and pulled out the faded hospital bracelet I'd kept hidden for years. The plastic was cracked from age, The ink had almost disappeared. I found this in a box when I was little, I admitted. Diane got angry when she saw it, so I kept it. The courtroom went completely silent again. Judge Bennett carefully took the bracelet from my hand. The second he saw the engraving, his entire expression changed. Not confusion. Recognition. He looked up at me slowly. Where exactly did you say you found this? Before I could answer, Diane suddenly stepped forward. That bracelet belongs to my son, she said. Grant blinked. What? No, it doesn't. For the first time all night, Diane looked like she'd made a mistake. Judge Bennett stared at her for a long moment. Then he said quietly, "Ma'am, I think you need a lawyer." The entire courtroom erupted at once. Grant looked between Diane and the judge like he'd missed part of the conversation. What the hell is going on? But Diane wasn't answering him anymore. She was staring at the bracelet in Judge Bennett's hand with pure panic on her face. Her husband Richard had been quiet through the whole hearing, sitting near the back with his tie loosened and his eyes fixed on the floor. But now even he looked shaken. Judge Bennett raised his hand for silence. Everyone except immediate family and court officers will clear the room. The wedding guests began whispering as bailiffs escorted them out. I heard fragments as they passed. She slept on the floor. Did he say sealed records? What kind of family does that? Grant grabbed Diane's arm the second the room emptied. Mom, tell me what's happening. Nothing is happening, she snapped too quickly. This judge is making assumptions. Judge Bennett leaned back in his chair. Then explaining the bracelet should be easy. Diane said nothing. The judge turned toward me again. His voice softened slightly. Celine, I need you to think carefully. Did anyone ever mention a hospital, a fire, anything unusual from when you were very young? A memory flickered in my mind, so suddenly it made my chest tighten. Smoke. Flashing lights. Someone carrying me through a crowded hallway. I swallowed hard. I remember alarms. And someone yelling my name. I paused, but not Celine. Diane's breathing visibly changed. Judge Bennett noticed it too. Then he opened the folder again and slid a single paper across the desk toward Richard. Your wife worked at St. Mary's Hospital in 2004, correct? Richard stared at the paper silently. Answer the question, the judge said. Yes. Grant looked completely lost now. Dad. Richard rubbed both hands over his face before speaking again. She worked night intake during the evacuation fire. The room went dead quiet. Judge Bennett nodded slowly, like a piece of something had finally clicked into place. Then Diane suddenly pointed at me. You have no idea what your real family was like, she said coldly. You think finding them will fix your life. I felt my stomach drop. The judge's eyes narrowed immediately. You just said real family, he said. And for the first time in 22 years, Diane had no answer. Grant backed away from his mother like he didn't recognize her anymore. What does that mean? He demanded. What real family? Diane's eyes darted around the courtroom desperately. Stop twisting my words. But the damage was already done. Judge Bennett stood slowly from the bench. Mrs. Whitmore, you are dangerously close to obstructing an active investigation. Richard suddenly spoke from the back of the room. She told me the girl was abandoned. Every head turned toward him. Diane whipped around. Richard, don't. But something in him had finally broken. His shoulders sagged as he looked at me for the first time all night, not past me, at me. She brought Celine home after the hospital fire, he said quietly. Said the system had lost track of her during the evacuation. She told me social services would place her eventually. My chest tightened so hard it hurt to breathe. Judge Bennett stepped closer, but that never happened. Richard shook his head slowly. A few weeks later Diane said the records were being transferred, then suddenly we were approved as emergency foster placement. Grant stared at his father in disbelief. You knew this the whole time. I didn't know everything, Richard snapped back, guilt flooding his face. But I knew enough to stop asking questions. Diane looked cornered now, furious and terrified at the same time. She would have gone into the system anyway, she said sharply. I gave her a home. A laundry room floor is not a home, Judge Bennett replied. Silence hit the courtroom again. Then the judge turned toward the bailiff. Contact family court investigators immediately and notify county child services. Grant looked sick. Mom, tell me this isn't true. But Diane wasn't even looking at him anymore. She was staring directly at me. And there was no affection in her face, no guilt either. Only anger. You were supposed to stay quiet, she said. Before anyone could respond, the courtroom doors opened and 2 investigators walked in carrying a sealed evidence envelope. Judge Bennett took one look inside, then lifted his eyes toward me slowly. The DNA request came back faster than expected, he said. My hands started shaking. The judge inhaled once before speaking. Celine, your biological parents are alive. For a second, nobody moved. I just stood there staring at Judge Bennett while the words echoed in my head. Your biological parents are alive. Not dead. Not missing. Alive. My knees almost gave out beneath me, and I had to grab the edge of the table to steady myself. Across the courtroom, Diane closed her eyes like she already knew there was no recovering from this. Judge Bennett opened the evidence envelope carefully. The DNA comparison matched with relatives connected to a child disappearance case from 2004. Grant looked physically sick now. What disappearance case? The judge's voice remained calm, but every word landed heavily. A 2-year-old girl vanished during the evacuation of St. Mary's Hospital after an electrical fire. He looked directly at me. Her parents spent years searching for her. I couldn't even process it fully. 2 years old. That meant I hadn't been abandoned at 8 like Diane always claimed. My entire childhood story had been fake. Judge Bennett continued. The child had a documented crescent-shaped birthmark near the collarbone and a custom hospital identification bracelet. He lifted the faded bracelet carefully. The same bracelet Celine kept hidden all these years. Grant slowly turned toward his mother. You kidnapped her. No, Diane shouted instantly. It wasn't like that. But even she sounded unsure now. The investigators began speaking quietly with the judge, while another officer moved beside Diane. Richard covered his face with both hands. Then finally, after years of silence, he told the full truth. Diane had been working temporary intake during the hospital evacuation. In the chaos, children were being moved between floors while records were incomplete. She found me separated from staff near a stairwell. At first, she reported me internally. But when days passed and confusion overwhelmed the system, she realized something horrifying. Nobody immediately knew where I belonged. That was when she made the decision. She used a contact connected to child services to alter transfer information. Months later, she and Richard applied for foster placement and specifically requested me. Not because they loved me. Because Diane believed she could control the situation permanently. And over time, the lie became their entire life. Grant shook his head slowly like his world was collapsing in real time. You made her sleep downstairs her whole life. Diane's face hardened again. She should have been grateful I kept her. The courtroom went silent one final time. Even the officers looked disturbed. Judge Bennett's expression turned cold. You stole a child, falsified records, abused the foster system, and subjected her to years of neglect. Diane finally looked afraid. One of the investigators stepped forward. Diane Whitmore, you are being placed under arrest pending charges related to custodial interference, fraud, falsification of records, and child endangerment. Grant stepped backward as officers cuffed his mother. Richard didn't even try to stop them. Neither did I. 3 days later, I met my biological parents. Not in some dramatic mansion reunion, not with music playing or cameras rolling. In a private family courtroom. My mother cried the second she saw me. My father looked frozen, like he couldn't believe I was real. They showed me old missing person flyers with my toddler photo on them, newspaper clippings, search campaigns, birthday candles they kept lighting every year after I disappeared. They had never stopped looking. Not once. The investigation exploded publicly after the arrest. Child Services reopened multiple foster placement files connected to Diane. Reporters picked up the story after guests from the wedding leaked details online. Grant's wedding videos even became evidence. Footage showed me carrying trays while guests ate, then cleaning floors in the background while the family posed for photographs without me. The public reaction was brutal. Richard avoided prison by cooperating fully, but he lost everything else: his marriage, his reputation, his house. Grant stopped contacting Diane entirely after learning the full investigation timeline. His wife moved out temporarily after discovering how long the abuse had gone on inside their home. Months later, I returned to the Whitmer house one final time before it was sold. Grant's massive upstairs wing sat empty now. The game rooms, the private balcony, the oversized bedroom I was never allowed to enter as a kid. I walked downstairs slowly toward the laundry room. The space looked smaller than I remembered. The old corner where my mattress used to sit beside the washing machine was completely bare now. For years, that floor was the closest thing I had to a bedroom. I reached into my pocket and pulled out the faded hospital bracelet. Then I placed it quietly on the shelf beside the dryer and walked out of the house for the last time. Because for the first time in my life, I wasn't the extra person in someone else's family anymore.